Last week I sorted through my entire miniatures collection and discovered that I have just way too much stuff. This week I'm going to be showing you the method that I'm using to paint through as many of the miniatures in my collection as I can, and to give away even more than that. Welcome to Miniature Shame Golf. Much like our hobby, many of our counterparts in the game collecting hobby often buy more than they actually play with, and they call this pile of unplayed games the backlog. Recently, I came upon a phenomenon that these gamers are using to tackle their own piles of shame, and they call this game backlog golf. It works just like this. When you finish a game you already own, your score goes down by 1 point. When you buy a new game, your score goes up by 1 point. And if you're not aware, golf is a weird game where your lower points are better than higher points. The idea is to play this game over a few months and to try to get your score as low as possible to help motivate you to play games you already own without limiting yourself to just buy nothing new. Now, I've made a homebrew version of this game for painting miniatures, and I've called it Miniature Golf. Oh, apparently miniature golf is already a thing. So we're going to be calling it Miniature Shame Golf instead, or just Shame Golf for short. It works in a similar way to backlog golf, but I've added just a few spicy rules to make it a little bit more interesting. Shame Golf works in 3-month seasons. The summer season starts today, June 15th at 1 a.m. in the morning, let's say, and it ends on September 15th at 11:59 p.m. at night. During this time, your goal is going to be to get your score as low as possible, just like golf, down into negative numbers. And the ways to score different points are as follows. When you finish painting a model, you can subtract 1 point from your score. When you buy a new model, you have to add 1 point to your score. Just to clarify, for our purposes, a model counts as any singular separate thing. So a little monster or a little person, that's a model. A piece of terrain, that's also a model. But if the terrain is made up of a lot of separate things, they count as individual models. If you're painting Gundam kits, each Gundam also counts as an additional model, so just any separate object counts as a model. In terms of what counts as completion in terms of painting, it's really up to you, but the rules that I'm going to use in the official league is sort of painted to a tabletop standard, which means the basing is done, and you have some basic highlights and shadows that you would actually want to put on a tabletop. So in addition to those basic rules, here are the bonus rules. You gain an additional point, or you can subtract 1 additional point if you give away or sell a model, and this bonus can stack if you're doing commission work. You can subtract 1 point when you paint a model, and then subtract an additional point when you sell it or give it away. You also can get points for sets of models. You can subtract 1 extra point whenever you complete a unit. If you play army games, you know what I mean by a unit of at least 5 figures and that are ready for the tabletop. On top of this, you can subtract an additional 5 points if you complete an entire start collecting box or whatever faction starter box you would have in a game that's not Warhammer. Finally, you can subtract 20 extra points when you complete a big starter set or a board game. So something like Cursed City, Indomitus, any big box with at least 2 factions that has more than 30 figures in it. And remember, these bonuses are on top of the individual points. So let's say the starter set has 30 figures in it, you can subtract that extra 20 points in addition to the 30 points for each individual figure. And if they're made up of individual units, you can subtract extra points for that. So these are just bonuses you can add onto existing point totals. However, it does also work both ways because there are extra points that you have to add to your total when you buy things within 30 days of their initial release. If you buy a box of figures within 30 days of its initial release, between 1 and 10 figures, you have to add an additional 5 points to your score. If you buy a start collecting box or faction starter box of figures within 30 days of its initial release, you have to add an additional 20 points to your total, in addition to the points for each extra model you're adding to your pile of shame. Finally, if you buy a new starter set with 2 factions in it, like Indomitus or Dominion or a big board game or something, anything with more than 30 figures and at least 2 factions, you must add an additional 50 points to your total if you buy it within the first 30 days of its release. These rules I've just mostly put in place for myself to help limit the amount of new releases that I buy on impulse, because as I said in my previous video, that's how I end up with the majority of unpainted models in my collection, so this is just designed to help limit that amount of models. Finally, buying STL files does not add any points to your total. You only accrue points to your total if you actually print those models. It doesn't matter how many STL files you buy because they're not taking up physical space. Getting miniatures as gifts that you didn't ask for also doesn't add points to your total, and same with trading miniatures back and forth. Let's say I want to trade 10 of my miniatures for someone else's 10 miniatures, that's fine, doesn't add any points to the total. Unless there's an uneven amount, like if you are trading 10 for 15, you would still have to add 5 points to your total. And it's that simple. Welcome to Miniature Shame Golf. That's the whole game, that's all of the rules, and you can play at home with a few of your friends, or you can play solo and just use the tag ShameGolf on Twitter or Instagram to show off what your current score is. Or if you want to play with a bunch of like-minded people, including myself, you can join my Patreon. For everyone who's doing at least $5 a month or above, you can join the exclusive Shame Golf Discord, which we are just starting today. We're going to use that to help keep track of everyone's points totals throughout the season, and at the end of the season, there will probably be prizes. I'm going to try and come up with some prizes for the end of the season for whoever has the lowest score in the official Summer Shame Golf League. So that's it. Hope you enjoyed this short video. If you want, I've also put a link to the video down below, which was where I learned about the concept of backlog golf, because again, I didn't invent this game. So I put a link down in the description to that. And that's Miniature Shame Golf.